Hello, and welcome to this episode in the basic series entitled Creating a Match. I'm John Becker with Shooters Technology, makers of the Orion Scoring System software and the Athena electronic scoring target. In this episode, we'll cover creating a match for the first time. Creating a match requires only a few steps, and you'll be up and running in a matter of minutes. We'll open Orion, set the parameters for the match, and save the match. Let's go to the desktop. You'll want to go ahead and find your icon for the Orion scoring system. Double click that to open it. Every time you open it, you're going to be greeted with a welcome screen. You will then go to create a local match. One thing to understand is within Orion, everything is considered a match. So anytime you want to scan targets for score, it's a match. So it can be a afternoon practice, it could be a tryout, it could be an actual sanctioned match, but everything within Orion's considered a match. So you're presented with match name, it always defaults to match and the current date, but you can change this to anything you want. You can call it training. You can even change the date if you want, but I would make it something that is easy for you to find and is particular or descriptive of what you did on that day. You have the ability to change date ranges. This generally applies to if you are hosting a match or a virtual match or a league, you would give the ability for the match to be shot over a period of time. Next is your rule book. The default is the National Standard three position air rifle rules. This is the CMP format for 99% of the air rifle matches that occur, especially in the three position world. If you were to shoot a standing air rifle match under USA shooting rules, you can come down and select that. Small bore, BB gun, CMP, rimfire, sporter, shotgun, trap, bench rest, everything exists in there, but by far the most common is going to be the national 3P rules. Whether or not you want to allow decimal scoring, right now CMP rules allow both, but the default is integer, so you would not want that selected. And re-entry applies to if you're going to allow the shooter to shoot multiple times in that same tournament or same match. Generally, it's no re-entry. Most of the time that this comes up is if you're doing qualifications where you can allow somebody to take their highest score from a particular stage in the match over a couple of days, or even try and during qualification if they're trying to shoot their three positions and they do that over different days, it allows you to track it in one spot. But again, most times it's no reentry. Course of Fire is going to relate to the rule book that you selected. So again, we selected the National Three Position Air Rifle Council rules, so CMP style air rifle. A 3x10 is the course of fire, so three positions, 10 shots each. The P, S, and K signify the order of the position, so prone, standing, and kneeling. You also could select that same format with a final. This is the 10 shot standing final that's added to your cumulative score. You can also shoot a 3x20, 3x20 with a final, 3x40, 2x10s, 2x20s, just prone and standing. There's no lack of a variety of things to choose. But again, this is going to be driven by the rule book. So for instance, if we go back to the rule book and select USA Shooting Air Rifle, go back to Course of Fire, I don't have three position air rifle selections for Course of Fire. I can do 40 shot standing, 40 shot plus a final, 60 shot plus a final, just finals, just prone, etc. So again, the great majority of you are going to select three position air rifle and let's say 3x20 for practice. When it comes to target type, this is the standard paper target. If you do not have the Athena system, you will not see the EST target collection or score format drop downs. This is only if you're setting up a match to include the use of Athena. Generally, the defaults based on your target are fine. Shots per bowl of one. Relay changes relate to mobile app scoring for range officials for large format targets, and this relates to whether or not the relays will change after the full course of fire or after each stage. So again, most of the time you can ignore that unless you're setting up an outdoor match with the large format targets. Number of team members relates to how many scoring members per team and maximum number of team members you're going to allow per team. For instance, in the JROTC world at service championships, generally it's a four-person named team, although there are matches where you can select best four out of five, so you would select five as your number of team members, and then the other option is to add dynamic team generation. So if this was checked, every four team members from first through fourth and then fifth through eighth would form another team, and it would just go on until it reached the end of your club's number of teams. But again, generally, four-person teams is the right way to go. Next tab is the Results Center. You're presented with three different choices as far as how results are handled. The first one is to do not upload scores. This keeps everything private and nobody can access scores except for at the desktop level on in this match. Next option is to upload scores and only allow athletes to view scores. This ties in with the mobile app and in the future, the Orion website where the athletes will be able to log in and view their scores, but this still keeps pretty tight control and you're only allowing athletes that you designate and set up within the match competitors tab or the athlete database that they would be allowed to see it. Or your last choice is to upload scores and allow the public to access it. This could also be relevant at the JROTC or the club level if you wanted to allow parents that weren't allowed or weren't able to attend practice to see scores. So choice is yours. I'm going to go ahead for this example and select only allow athletes to view scores. It will confirm that they have to match with the account. They already have to have an account, plus the details have to match in the Match Competitor tab. Anytime you're uploading scores, you need the information filled out for Match Director, contact information, and whatnot. If you were hosting a tournament or participating in a tournament, you would see a list of available tournaments to attach this match to. But since there aren't in these, and generally you're not going to see that, just holding practices or training matches, we'll ignore that. You go to the next tab is competitor number. Competitor number generally defaults to just a sequential number. You can make this whatever you want. If you would prefer a larger number as a starting number, you can do that. If all of your cadets or your club members have a CMP number, you can track them by their CMP number because that's unique. You can use a text abbreviation. This is normally if you're using fill in the bubble kind of targets or the IDs on the targets. Great majority of time, you're just going to use the sequential numbering, have it start at 101. Probably second most common would be either a CMP competitor number or a USA competitor number, just because that's going to be easier to track them over time, as opposed to the sequential is based on alphabetical order or actually it's based on the order that you add the athletes to the match. So if one week you had different kids show up for practice, if you track them using a 101 and above, that could potentially change every week, makes it a little more confusing. If you just have their CMP number, that's going to stay with them whether they miss a practice or not. Next tab is sanctioning. Sanctioning only applies if you were to host a three-position air rifle council match administered by the CMP, generally an EIC points match, three-position match. They would provide you a match ID and on an authentication code. So think of this as a username and password. If you select that, enter the match ID and authentication code that CMP provided you, this will allow you later on to upload scores directly to the CMP server. But since this is just a training match, not sanctioned, we're just going to deselect that. And then your last tab is categories. Categories allow you to sort a little better when you're printing out results. So a general default based on the rulebook and the course of fire is three-position air rifle type. So that would divide sporter and precision shooters just so you're not seeing those scores mixed because there's generally a difference in those scores. Just helps to make it a little more streamlined. But again, there are multiple categories and you can select multiple categories also. Like in this case, new shooter is generally, I've seen it most in the JROTC postal world where there's a boot or a veteran category. So somebody with very little experience, less than a year or new this first school year versus somebody that's a returning shooter. You can create age groups if you wanted to break it down by gender. If you had regions, these are customizable, but I've seen it most often as a 4-H match with different districts or regions across the state. American Legion likes to track their different regions for their competitors. Organization level, let's say you had a pretty broad group and you wanted to see how the JROTCs did versus the 4-H clubs or Boy Scout troops, that you have that ability. And then skill level is probably the most customizable. You can create age group levels. Probably where I've seen this the most is the 4-H world, where you have intermediate seniors and juniors based on their grade level in school. So you don't have to select any of these. The default for Sporter and Precision is generally good, but if all you have are Sporter or Precision or Sporter or Precision, you can deselect that as well. Once you've gone through and double checked and selected the way you want your match scored or your format for the match, you can go ahead and click save. But understand once this match is created, you cannot go back and change the rule book because that affects so many things, so many other things with course of fire and whatnot. So double check that you have it how you want it. Go ahead and click save, and then it'll confirm that you cannot change it afterwards. It's a local match. Here's the course of fire. Here's the rule book, and we're going to score an integer. Is this correct? Once you click yes, it'll save it, and you are brought to your match competitors tab, where if you had favorites, which we'll cover in another video, they would be automatically added, or you can go in and start to add your competitors to your match. So thank you for viewing today's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell to be notified when future instructional videos are available. And as always, if you have any additional questions, feel free to check out our helpful guides on the website or email or call our offices for further assistance.